Hey guys, it's Disaster Area here. It's my second video today because you can't get away from me that easily. Sorry. Nah, it's cool if you're here. Presume that you want to be. Um, well, I mean, maybe I hate watch Callus videos sometimes, but nah. Anyway, the topic ADV 50. Uh, First, what is it? Secondly, why play it? Yeah, that's kind of it, actually, really. That's kind of all I want to do. Um, but okay. ADV 50. It's an ADV tier, or Gen 3 tier, that I made with a bunch of friends in like 2017. And the reason why it's called that is because it's got 50 Pokemon in it. That's really it. It's also like most of the old fogies watching will get that ADV 50 sounds like ADV 200, which was the meta game before Fire Red and Leaf Green were released. So you couldn't actually obtain every Pokemon legally at that point, just 200 of them, and that's why it was called that. So that's where the name comes from. The 50 Pokemon on screen were not the original 50. Over time, the list has changed as in a couple cases, Pokemon have been deemed too strong, but mostly stuff has been deemed unviable and swapped out. But I guess what the heck you're wondering is why the heck did we make this in the first place? It's a good question, isn't it? The thing is, I guess, with this was I just wanted like a tier. Like there's certain things about ADVOU that like either I don't necessarily like or just like it'd be interesting to see what a meta game without it would look like as well, and like those kind of things. Like I really don't like trapping. In ADVOU, I do try and like abuse the hell out of it because it's there. And ADVOU, it's a nice meta game. It's not. This meta game's not really so much competition to ADVOU. It's just something different. And what it's really meant to offer is, first of all, is just like no quote unquote cheese strats. So that means like pretty aggressively clamp down with just like banned bright powder, swagger, those kind of things. There's no trapping. Baton Pass is limited as well in the sense that you can't use it with stat boosting moves, which I can get sort of back into sort of well, that's not just, I mean, it is anti-cheese to a degree, but also I think that having that kind of forces certain Pokemon to run more interesting sets. Like Absol can't just run Calm Mind Pass or SD Pass. Instead, you can do stuff like Sub SD with it. But yeah, I think overall it has a nice impact like that. And the other thing that it offers as well, other things that it offers as well is just like a nice hazard game. If you've not got trappers, I mean, ADV doesn't have that many spike users in general. But what we sort of ended up going with here was like a tier where sort of Fortress is the main spiker, and the power level's a bit below you. And even though you see a Magneton on screen, if you look carefully, if you have eyes, Magnet Pull is banned. As I said, trapping is banned. In fact, Magneton was actually a pretty recent addition as well. So you can't just trap Fortress. You have to play around it in some way, either like prevent it from spreading out spikes, or set up your own spikes alongside it, or force it to limit it to one layer, or just set your own and spin block, or spin with your own whatever with your Blastoise or something like that. I mean, yeah, or set up a bigger threat against it, like Subpass Fearow, Calm Mind Kadabra, Mixed Typhlosion. That's kind of the idea. It's sort of like one of those interesting dynamics in ADV 50 that you don't get in other metagames very often. That kind of dynamic around the spiker. But yeah, another thing that we wanted with and have achieved with ADV 50 is every style being viable in terms of like offense through the stall. Yeah, we have everything on that range. It's a pretty balanced tier. Like more heavy offense, harder stall are both viable routes. But in addition to that, we've got weather offense. Gen 3 doesn't really have the capacity for hail offense. Sand offense, to the extent that it exists, is already as good as it's going to get in OU. But sun and rain, both interesting offensive archetypes here, as well as sort of weatherless teams, spikes or spikeless. There's also Superman's a possibility here, which for those unfamiliar, which might be some people in the audience, that's all right, is when you have a team where most of the Pokemon are spikes immune. And you sort of just take advantage of that by being really hard to take down. It was used to be a dominant style in OU way back in the old days, like probably during like Net Battle era. Way before Pokemon Showdown came into existence. There's also Belly Drum is a legit strategy. Nobody's at the time of recording, nobody's really tried it on Lanoon yet. Azumarill doesn't really get away with it very often. But it has some interesting traits. But Clefable's been pretty nice as a drummer, actually. Belly Drum, Softballed, Return Medium Ash is the set because you just you can't really wall it to the extent you can as like Fortress. So which is a Pokemon you kind of want to target and wear down anyway on a lot of teams. So yeah, it's one of those interesting, unique things that you get to see that you don't get in most other tiers. Obviously, there was a point in time when GSCOU, again during like absolutely ancient eras of the tier, when Belly Drum, particularly Snorlax, was pretty common. I don't know if you would see it every match, but it was like a legit strategy for a long time. You still can see it today, but it's pretty rare. So that's like another cool thing. The lack of sand. So with sand, I really don't mind sand, but not having it does change things in some interesting ways. I mean, for one, every Pokemon can heal with lefties and protect. So protect does just become more common because of that. Another thing is it does make it a little bit harder to rack up passive damage, but you've still got spikes and toxic flying all over the place if you want it. It also means that stuff like reversal and flail are they have a lot more potential in that more Pokemon can use it because they won't be killed by sand. But at the same time, I think because the tier is pretty balanced at the moment, those sorts of strategies aren't popular. But that could also just sort of be a function of my bias. At the moment, I'm still the main person who builds in this tier, but I want to see that change. One other thing I want to add, at the time of recording, we've got a tournament, an off-season one, which will be beginning on Monday. So if you see this, you can sign up for that. But otherwise, hop in the Discord anyway. From January 2022, we want to be hosting seasons. And anytime from then onwards, should always be plenty of tournaments to get yourself stuck in with. One other thing I want to get into actually on that note is I've built a pretty nice tournament system for ADV 50 that I may be bringing to ADVOU at some point. But the cool thing that we're doing with that is storing every single team used. Well, there's a couple cool things. One is we're storing every single team used, which will give us like massive like analysis capabilities. So for one, players will receive like personalized tendency reports, seeing how their usage compares with the metagame overall. We'll have archetype analysis, so we'll see what percentage of teams used are offense, balance, stall, breaking it down to like what are like sun offense, spikes balance, like so on, paralysis balance. That kind of breakdown will also be giving in both the overall usage and then in comparison with that in the tendency statistics. We'll also be able to see stuff like on common Pokemon that run like a couple different sets, which in most tiers, including ADV 50, Pokemon often can run a few different sets. So we can see like Altaria, how much is it mixed versus Dragon Dance versus Healbell, and so on, or Goldock, how much is it Hypnosis versus Subcalm Mind versus Rest Talk, or Clefable, how much is it Calm Mind versus Belly Drum versus like Thunderwave support sets, which could also run a lot of different options and so on. So being able to see that is pretty cool. Like imagine if we did do this in ADVOU and seeing the Tyranitar like set usage, like how much of it is like 𝒃𝒃, how much of it is DD, how much of it is Pursuit, how much is like the offensive mix set that some people call UDTAR, and so on. Like that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool to see. Yeah, there's a lot that we can do with that. There's also going to be a rating system as well based on the points earned in the seasons, which I modeled off of 6 years worth of Pokemon Perfect RBYOU season data, which I hosted for a lot of that. I know that in detail, and the key point really is that each season is like three single elimination tournaments that are best of 5, and you get a point for each battle you win. So even if you lose a set like 1-3 or 2-3, you still earn some points. And the rating system basically sort of weighs the all-time performance as sort of like the points earned out of what was available, and weighs that against the performance in the last year. And generates a rating off of that with the sort of numbers you're comfortable with, sort of like a floor of 1,000, like good scores at like 1,600 or so is good. The top of the peaks can like hit over 2,000. And in the future, there's like really cool things we could do with that, like team tournaments where we make use of those ratings in some way to sort of maybe have like a team tournament where we try and balance things to a degree, but also teams get to like keep most of their players season upon season, like that kind of thing. There's lots of cool things from a technical standpoint as well going on with the tier, and not just the tier itself, but the tier itself really fun. You should give it a go. One other thing, the pacing of the tier is really good in the sense that whatever you like, the tier can provide it to a degree. If you like fast offensive games, bring offense most of the time. That's what you'll get. Games that end in under 20 turns or under 30 turns almost every time. But still have a lot of thought going into each of those turns. If you're like me and you like to fairly regularly have sort of longer, more thoughtful games, the tier does have the capacity for that as well, to bring like more defensively inclined teams with slower playing strategies. And that can lead to long games. I've had a couple where it's sort of gone over 100 turns, and it's not just going over 100 turns, but each of those turns feeling like they mattered. Like a wrestling control, like a tug of war between you and your opponent, like who's got the control, who's got the momentum, how are you able to push for an advantage, when do you explode something perhaps, or how was the status spread, or getting key damage on key Pokemon, like that kind of stuff. Just the stuff that we love about Pokemon, like competitively, just that raw sort of mental battle between you and your opponent. Now, like any tier, luck can happen as well. It's just, it's still Pokemon, but there's the worst forms of cheese, like those that you can reasonably eliminate without sort of going and banning paralysis or something, have been removed. So yeah, I want to see you guys trying it out. Come join the tournaments, come play the tier. It's a heck of a lot of fun. That's all I gotta say. Discord link is in the description. Drop a like, comment, subscribe. Continue to be sexy. Or actually, considering most of the people watching this are probably dudes, I guess, like, I don't know. Okay. I don't know why I said all of that. I think me talking is starting to sound like me typing now. So that means that I really ought to stop. Goodbye, everyone. Enjoy the tier.